Okay, it's connecting.
I have a live on Facebook notification on my screen.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we're live.
Great.
All right. Well, if you're out there, I'm in Zoom right now. So if you are out there in Facebook Live land, you can certainly add comments and let yourself be known. I am Kevin Hunting, the founder of Two Steps Forward Coaching. And I am so happy and grateful to have Chris Nicklo here today as a guest. And we're going to be talking about a whole, I think, host of things. We'll take you through a litany of things, but really the focus is specifically more so around career management, insight from Chris about his overall experience. And also, to me, one of the most interesting areas, Chris, is, how you've pivoted. I think, to me, a lot of people would never even think of perhaps doing that, and especially in your career where you were having, I say, the courage to do that, to make this huge pivot to something that I'm going to read into this a little, but I think you're now living even more of your purpose in terms of, I think, what you're doing. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that. So thank you for everybody for being here. And thank you, Chris. So just to get started off, I think it'd be great if you just shared a little bit for people who may be joining and aren't familiar with you, just a little bit about your experience, your background, kind of the journey that your career has taken.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. And thanks, Kevin, for having me on. I'm really excited about what you're doing. So a little bit about my career story. I had a first career, as I think about it, for 28 years in advertising, branding, retail marketing. And then I've had an encore career, a second career over the last 2 years, pivoting from marketing to hearing. And I work with patients to help them with their hearing. And, for me, I have had trouble hearing for 20 years, have worn hearing aids over that time, and they have helped my life so much that, to be able to help people as well to hear better so that they can function confidently at work and connect with others is so rewarding right now. So I'm loving what I'm doing now, and also really proud of what I accomplished in that first segment of my career.
Awesome. So I know I'm going to kind of start with, I think, going back to your days, I think when you were in marketing, obviously we worked together when you were at Banana. And one of my questions, like really big questions, is what would you think are some of like the main obstacles that you actually faced professionally as you continue to move into those more senior leadership type of roles as a VP, a CMO, maybe even as a director, like starting there? What were some major obstacles that you were faced with in terms of your own professional growth?
Sure. So for me, one of the pivots that I made was from an advertising agency or a branding agency side into the corporate side when I joined Banana Republic. And one of the things I quickly had to learn was how to say no. Because when you're consulting, you're in advertising, the client is always right. Your job is to advise them, to provide them with your best thinking, but at the end of the day, they're the decision makers. And one of the things I realized working in the corporate world was that part of the reason I was being paid was to say no to different people or to different projects or priorities. And that was not easy for me. It was not my personality. And I think I first saw it as very binary. Either you're a nice, pleasing person or you're just no, no, no. And neither of those resonated extremely well with me, especially the no, no, no. But I learned two things. One was pragmatism. When do you need to say no? And it's easy to get drawn into thinking that you have to battle everything that comes across your desk. But learning what's most important and where it needs your focus was really key to me. And the second thing was diplomacy. I am someone who likes to get to a shared outcome, likes people to be happy, and learning how to create win-win situations versus always having to say no was very helpful. So that was one. The second thing was I worked at Banana Republic and Gap Inc. for 12 years. And in any corporate environment, if you can't learn to embrace change, you're going to be dead in the water very quickly. And change can be very scary, and it creates a lot of fear. Will you be as successful as things change as maybe where you were, et cetera? And I think that one of the things that my team and I really embraced was this idea that our role in the firm was to pioneer. And pioneering can be really exciting, like, wow, do new things. But we also got really clear that in doing new things, um, pioneers get a lot of arrows shot in their backs. Or you might think of another analogy of you're trying to roll boulders up the hill and they come flying back down onto you. So if you're not willing to take an arrow in the back for what you believe in and for this excitement around pioneering, you're not going to be able to help move through change or even help lead change in an organization. The other thing is how to work corporately. Corporations, matrixed environments, and lots of obstacles and naysayers, people with different priorities than you. And one of the things I learned was how to really create win-win opportunities. Trying to understand with empathy where my partner was coming from, what his or her goals and priorities were, and how we could interlink our two together so that we all win versus a win-lose situation. And the other thing I found really important there, which was helped by my marketing background and advertising background, was the power of the story. Being able to articulate what you're trying to do, why it's important, quickly, cogently, so that the person could understand where you're coming from was very important. And then lastly, and this is the most important thing, every leader will tell you it, but coming from where I was an individual contributor as a consultant, but learning to lead a team was really important. I had amazing people working for me, thankfully. I tried to hire for passion. That was always the first thing I looked for in an interview was passion and smarts. And then as a leader, my goals were to set a vision that they understood and could buy into, to help inform them with the latest news so that always when they were working on their projects, they could make the best decisions. And lastly, to champion them in their work throughout the organization, use the relationships that I had.
Awesome, thank you. And one thing I have that came to mind quickly as you were talking was, you talked a lot about, the idea that as marketers, and obviously your philosophy with the brand marketing team was to be innovative. And you talked about how, right, like some of those individuals might have been a little bit fearful because some of those ideas may have been, not grand ideas, but certainly ideas that it's about taking a calculated risk. And so just curious, like a little bit more into that, like how did you really go about not managing, but helping those individuals see the value in taking those calculated risks?
Yeah, I think it goes back to that whole idea of pioneering. And I really tried to help get people excited about being a part of change or helping to lead change. We were a small team, but across the team, people were excited about change and being part of change. And there was a pride in it. And so I think that pride helped propel people out of their fear places, because it is very easy when you're looking at change and you're looking at all these other functions that you're going to need to work with to move things forward and all the naysayers to stand back. And especially maybe the more junior you are in an organization, the scarier that is. But to have clarity around why we're doing this, that storytelling power, why this is important to the firm based on its priorities. That gives you a confidence. Number two, to be excited about pioneering. And then three, to understand very clearly that you are going to get arrows shot at you. You are going to have that rock come back down on you. And so when you know that that's going to happen, then it's not so scary. And
Absolutely.
it's like, oh, a rock just came down, or we had to pivot a little to keep our idea moving forward, but to understand that's expected versus a setback. I think
Gotcha.
that's really critical.
So I'm hearing you say a little bit of, it's almost, you have to go into it knowing that, sort of with a mindset, expecting that, you know what, there's going to be those 2 or 3 people, and that's, it's just something that, you know what, you just know it's going to happen, so you keep moving forward. So it doesn't,
Absolutely.
I mean, I like that, because then it doesn't really throw you, right? Because a lot of times people could be thrown if they're giving it too much attention, or feeling, I guess, afraid of the fact that someone's going to either say no, or like you said, throw an arrow or a spear your way. So it's one of those things where having that kind of mindset going into it helps to just sort of deflect the fact that you're like, you know what, it's expected. It's going to happen, and we know what what we're doing is right for the brand, and so we're going to keep moving forward. We're just going to keep, stay the course, so to say.
Yeah, it's a real quick way of thinking about it is it's taking it from personalizing the setback to processizing the setback. The setback is part of the process. It's not part of the person. And I think that's really important. And the other thing is just understanding that setbacks are part of getting an idea, of refining an idea, of honing it, trial by fire. It makes the idea and can make it better, even though it does introduce complications and difficulties and everything.
Awesome. Thanks. So one big question I have is, because it goes both ways, is what do you think has been maybe one of the biggest professional challenges you were faced with during that time period? What was, and one that you're probably the most proud of, maybe because either like you said, you took a risk, or it maybe even not even be about risk taking, but what was some major challenge that you are proud of that you were able to sort of, push through it, whatever that challenge was?
Yeah, midway in my career, change was always happening. And I worked for a number of different bosses over the time that I was at Banana Republic. And a new boss had come in, and about 3 months into our relationship, she sat me down and basically told me that she didn't think I could do the work that she needed and expected from me.
Wow.
And that was a huge come to Jesus moment for me.
Absolutely.
My reputation was not that, and I was somewhat shocked by it, and obviously frightened. It was basically, this was almost like a warning notice
Wow.
from HR that I was on my way out. And I regrouped, and I realized that, wait a minute, part of the reason, again, in this idea of not personalizing, part of the reason that she's not seeing what she needs from me is that I had been given direction from the previous boss not to do certain things, which the new boss was looking for.
Gotcha.
Okay, so that was like, all right, well, I can show her this is what I love to do. So that was one. The second was I tapped into relationships, which were always extremely important to my career, and never more so than now. And I reached out to HR to talk about this, and they gave me good advice, which was to, tap into others in the organization, especially leadership. And I went and I sat down with the president of Banana Republic and talked quite frankly about the feedback that I had been given, and my desire to work in the firm and learn, and what input they might have for me to do great work for the firm going forward, not just to rest on my laurels of that which I had already done. And I talked to 3 other key leaders there, and that built credibility for me. It showed I took this seriously. And 3 months later, I had a review with my boss, and she told me she'd never seen anyone who took feedback so seriously, and she'd never seen such a quick pivot. And then ultimately, I became, one of her top trusted lieutenants, and we still have a relationship to this day. And so that was a major major issue to deal with. And I would say though, one other thing that really kept me going in that was my team. I talked with them about it as well, and they not only were encouraging to me, I think they also interceded on my behalf with the boss to tell them their impressions of me. And so it was daunting and scary, but I look back with it in terms of how I showed up with authenticity, and also courage and conviction in my own abilities to move through it.
What a powerful thing that you just said, like the conviction, the courage, the word. I love that you were using the word authenticity, because I mean, we could talk about that for hours too when it comes to leadership and how leaders show up. And I think authenticity is critical, but I also see that, just like in any work environment, you have people who are in very different stages, I think, in terms of their self-awareness. And a lot of times, what sometimes you can feel too is when someone's not being authentic. And certainly that creates a whole dynamic when it comes to team dynamics and just, managing people to, like you said, get to a common goal or to a common understanding. So
yeah,
that sounds powerful. So one really great question I have is, what's like, if you had to look at the top, I mean, I can say between maybe 2 or 3 skills, and they're probably more, I'm guessing, soft skills, because at that level, you kind of already have really that technical proficiency, right? You've demonstrated that you have a business acumen, you understand kind of the greater marketplace, if you will, the external competitive marketplace, et cetera, and have a fundamental understanding. But what skills would you say were most important for you to excel, like to really excel and tap into, like you said, all of those different qualities that you mentioned about authenticity? What would those be?
Good question. I think for me, it started with relationship. They were critical in a corporate environment, working across a matrix of different functions to move important projects forward. If you don't have the relationships that you can go to and speak with people, to try to, have them embrace your ideas or learn from them where their issues were so you could address them, you're going to go nowhere. And that includes relationships with my team, and making sure that they know that I believe in them, that I'm not going to try to steal their thunder or take credit for the work that they do, but I'm going to back them. A second one is reputation. And that goes back to your authenticity comment. I had developed over my time at Banana Republic and across Gap Inc. a reputation for diplomacy and this idea of win-win, for honesty and responsibility/accountability. I think I embraced the idea of being able to say, this was a problem that occurred on my watch, and we're going to fix it. And that's not easy to do. Expensive and everything, but I developed with that a reputation for Chris is going to be accountable. And I think that propelled me and my team forward. Another one would be resourcefulness. You're always dealing with limited resources, people, budget, etc. But if you want to move things forward and you want to succeed, you've got to be resourceful. So how can we, with very little budget, move something forward? And what would be a way of doing that? And we developed new partnerships and got partners to help us on ideas that we had, and to come to the table with what they could bring to something that we wanted to do. And we were able to do so much more than just we alone with our resources could do. And then lastly, you mentioned one other word, and that's courage. Especially at a leadership level, you have to have the courage of your conviction of what you believe in. You have to have the courage to be able to point out something that isn't working, with not just a judgmental tone, but also one of responsibility. This isn't working. Let's work on it together and fix it. And that was one of the things that others had said about me in my career, that I had courage to say what needed to be said. And that was something that I felt a lot of pride in. And I think that all those things, relationships, reputation, resourcefulness, and courage, are critical.
And where do you think that you learned, like, if you think back, right? Because I'm sure this was like the young Chris, went to Darden, like, so where did you find that courage? Like, was courage something, I'm curious, like maybe when you were younger, was that something that your, parents perhaps instilled in you, was the idea that, you should take risks, right? Or step into, because again, it seems common, it's a common theme among clients of mine that they put out there, like, I want to build my confidence, which is related to courage. So where do you think that came from for you? I'm curious.
Wow, it's a good question, because I would say that when I was younger, like you're speaking to others, I don't feel that I had a lot of courage. I was very doubtful of my skills and my abilities and my worth. And I think that,
By the way, I think that's pretty common across the board. Like, I think it's pretty normal, but yeah. No, because it just is, but it's such an interesting concept of how, right? Because people always say, oh, you have to have confidence. But really, when you say that, it's one thing, but to develop it is a whole nother, it's not even a muscle. It's like it's a belief. Like you said, I am confident in what I believe and what I'm doing. But, was there something that some like decision intelligent, like you put yourself in certain situations, or you really recognize that, I'm like, okay, I need to be putting myself in these types of situations to build that out. It's, I guess, I don't know if that's.
Yeah, I think that courage is not something that you just get.
Mhm.
And it's not something you can go and to a self-help book or a coach and get.
Absolutely.
For me, the starting point for feeling courageous was having a conviction about what I wanted to do, or what I felt was the goal. And that took time. It took a lot of thinking. And for each project, what is it we're trying to do? And why is that tied into the goals of the firm? And why should we do this? And once I could get clear about that, I had something to stand on. I had a conviction to speak courageously, or to
Gotcha.
introduce an idea to the firm, even if it was foreign. I had a belief in it. And then secondly, I think with those relationships, both across the firm as well as with my team, it gave me a larger sense of self. It wasn't just me against the world, it was us. And that builds courage as well, when you're not feeling like it's only you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, that would be the other thing. And then lastly, and I don't mean this to sound trite, but I think once you can start living as your authentic self, and whether that is about being out at work, I felt very comfortable to be out. The corporation I work with made it extremely easy. And once you can be yourself, for everything that you are, and once you feel like you know that, and then you live that,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing that can stop you.
That's actually really beautiful, because I do remember too that for me, that was one of the most important factors of where I was working, like you said, was kind of the corporate culture and values that the brands lived, and being able to just be you, which when you think about it, isn't like you're going to be any different probably somewhere else, but the idea that that the company that you work for recognizes you and talks about, who you are very openly and candidly, and in a very supportive, warm environment, like you said, it really does make such a huge difference. And probably just, again, how you're showing up every day at your job, and then I think more importantly, the actual climate, because really I don't think you can't really maximize your productivity if you're going to work every day in fear of either losing my job, or um, if this gets known that I am perhaps gay, what might be a ramification of that? Like, will I be able to keep my job? So, I mean, it's another whole topic around diversity that's so interesting, but I love that you brought that up because it's also a major factor, I think, as an LGBTQ individual to be able to excel in a professional work environment is to know, like you said, that I can be me. And that's, and no one's gonna ever say like, well, why are you that way, or challenge who you are, because it's just built into the DNA of the company.
Yeah, and the one thing I would add on that in terms of courage is I don't think that it is the best approach to look for that environment to make it comfortable for you. I actually feel like, and we've all seen this before, that people take their cues from you. So if you are feeling unsure that you can be you, that's going to be picked up, and no one's then going to be like, oh, it's okay. But if you are out there just being you, and it's okay to talk about my partner in this conversation, just like anyone else would talk about with their partner. Once you start showing up with that courage, it's going to be there for you. You don't have to wait for it. And in fact, if you do wait for it, I don't think you're necessarily going to find it. It's no one's job to make you feel comfortable being you.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. That's the authenticity piece of knowing who you are and being okay, or being sure of that's who I am. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So one other question I had was, how did you, again, this goes back to maybe a build on the one that I had just asked, how did you invest in yourself? Like, how did you make an investment in yourself in terms of your growth professionally? I'm sure it's something that you had to be constantly assessing maybe your own gaps, your strengths, all that good stuff, because that just goes along with the territory.
Yeah.
So how did you invest? What did you do?
Well, one of the things I did that was very helpful to me was I did work with an executive coach. And, especially early on, as I was making this transition from individual contributor consultant to, being a vice president at a major corporation, was a huge transition on many levels. And so working with an executive coach helped me, I had somebody that I could talk to about it, talk about what I was trying to achieve, and think through. And so I'd say that's one place that was very helpful for me. I think I've always been intensely curious. It's why I got into marketing. Why do people buy what they buy? I'm fascinated by that. You go to the detergent aisle and there's 25 different detergents, and why do you buy Tide and I buy, Cheer? Is it the smell? Is it a coupon? Is it whatever?
Which sometimes can be kind of overwhelming. I'm just putting it out there. Like, I have been in the toothpaste aisle and I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to buy. Like,
exactly.
I stick to my tried and true. I am a loyalist to Tom's. I'm just going to put it out there that I know that's, I'm a big fan of Tom's products, but like you said, you get it, but it is interesting. Like you said, the behavioral aspect of why someone's attracted to a particular brand or product.
I'm just a curious person. So and I brought that to leadership, which was I was intensely curious about watching the people that I felt were really successful at the company, and learned a lot from them. Pragmatism I spoke about earlier was something that I watched intensely. One person in particular was incredibly pragmatic, and I felt like part of their success was knowing when to take something on and when to walk. And so that was just being intensely curious about others' leadership style and what makes them successful was helpful to me.
Okay, this was not a question that was necessarily on the list, but you made me just think of something because you said the word pragmatism. And that is something that really, helped you. How do you feel that you were able to leverage your emotions, your feelings as a strength, as a leader? Because a lot of times people, you don't hear like leaders really talk about feelings and emotions, but the two go hand in hand, right? The head and the heart, or the logic, the reason, and I think that side of it, right? More of that emotional side is really what allows a lot of leaders to become so effective in terms of building and connecting with people, because it's not just, okay, what is all the data telling me? And so how do you think you were able to leverage your emotions to be a really effective leader and connect in the ways that you were able to?
It's a great question. I feel like part of what I tried to do was one, really lean into passion. So when I felt passionate about something, I felt like I was unstoppable. And I feel like I could rally others around an idea, whether it's teams or, the people I needed support or money from. So passion was probably the most important emotion. And then, you've seen people who are just passionate about everything, and they tend to get stalled at times, maybe, because others are like overwhelmed with their passion. It's like, oh no, not another project that, you want. And that's where the pragmatism came in, which is
Okay, right, a balance.
exactly. Yeah, and I would say, at times probably I don't think I'm the most successful person at, understanding the nuances of how to be emotional. I think at times I might be considered by my team or others a little bit unemotional, or how can you not be upset about this? Or and I feel like that was something I had the opportunity to work more on, is to show more of my authentic self. And at times I did learn to be willing to go there with my teams when we had a setback, for them to understand that I too was down.
Right. It's kind of that, it's that humanistic side, right? Of being, if I'm a real person, I have feelings too. And, I'm just as let down as all of you.
Yeah.
Or I think about too with team dynamics, the idea of trust. I mean, trust does sometimes get built on a lot of times kind of allowing people to see your own humanity. Like, and I don't mean, again, spilling your guts about your personal life or the details of anything. That's not it. I'm saying, allowing people to at least have a glimpse into what that is, because certain people then, I think it can make deeper connections. There's deeper connections that get built, which equates to trust, which then, leads to, greater, not loyalty, just productivity, collaboration, like you said, passion around what the group is working on.
Yeah. I think I learned that over my career. At first, I mistrusted my emotions and felt like many that they might be a sign of vulnerability, or you had that. And so I operate almost more from that imposter syndrome of being the actor. Okay, now we're going to do this, team. That general. I'll just fulfill that role. Versus later, I was able to just be more authentically human about what we wanted to do. And I think that came with time and experience. And like I said, I still feel like it's a work in progress at times.
Awesome, thank you. So another question I had was, okay, we mentioned this earlier in the conversation, you've done this pivot, right? You are now, I think explain to people, I think a lot of people may not know, like you mentioned it earlier, that you always have had hearing problems and an issue hearing. And so how did you get to, how did you decide that, what, I really need to step away from this long path and journey that I've been on as, in marketing, to now consider really something not so different, I think, in many ways, but at least it's a pivot from, like, I'm not doing the same thing that I was doing, which most people just continue to do maybe their whole lives. How did you come to that decision for yourself?
Wow, it was a journey. After I left Banana Republic, I became the chief marketing officer at the Gallerie and worked there for 3 years. And my role there had come to an end in 2018. And as I was thinking about the next role that I wanted to take on, that passion that we talked about, that is a fuel, a driver, I found it lacking when I thought about marketing and advertising and branding. And that was incredibly scary.
Mm.
Like this thing that I've done for 28 years, I can't get excited about doing. And if I can't be excited, I know that that passion is critical to fueling me, especially at these senior levels where you're asked to do so much. And without that passion, how would I be successful? But then, you know, the idea of doing something different, like this is what I've done, this is what people want to pay me for, and it's what I know. And so for quite some time, I wandered in the wilderness, is the best way I can talk about it, and with a lot of fear. Um, and, you know, I tried to think of marketing things, you know, new areas of marketing that might be really interesting and engage me again, you know, thinking maybe I was bored. Um,
Mm.
but I think it was a combination of boredom after 28 years, and some burnout. Retail marketing is not easy and hasn't been, for many years as the shifts are happening in that industry. So boredom, burnout, or that marketing has changed a lot. It used to be, and the parts that I loved about marketing were brand storytelling and positioning, and now, you know, it's very much about making sure you've optimized your Google search words, and you know, and I don't think I was excited about it anymore. But like I said, lots of fear. And so one day I was sick of the fear, and I just sat down and I thought, okay, well, if I don't want to do marketing, what do I want to do? And I just started writing things down. Like, what would I be excited about? And I wrote down the things everyone would write down: travel, wine, you know. And but the thing that was always there is, well, what do I know about those things? And who would hire me with no experience? And as I was writing my list and getting toward the end of it, I wrote down hearing.
Mm.
And it was not top of mind. I think the only reason I wrote it down was I was thinking, during this, that maybe I needed some new hearing aids. They weren't working so well. So it's sort of topical on a whole different thing. But as
Right.
I hit the paper, I got excited. Like, wow, this would be so amazing to help people with something that I've been so helped with over 20 years.
Mm.
Able to hold down an amazing job and have amazing relationships. I know how important this is. And I also knew how few hearing healthcare professionals can't hear. So the idea that I could bring some relevance to this work of being, you know, of meeting a patient where they were was exciting. So then I did some research and, you know, found that I could actually do this work, and I could, you know, take some, you know, do some learning, take some exams, and be able to do the work I wanted to, which is I can help people, I can test people's hearing, help them understand where they are, and then also help them with the options of getting help if they needed it.
Would you say that part of the decision, I'm just thinking, part of your decision to go and explore and, like you said, get kind of filled up, like you said, passionate again, was that something that you would was tied more to your emotions, kind of your feeling overall, right? Because passion is a feeling versus that pragmatism that you mentioned earlier. I'm just
I'm sure that was that, because the idea of helping people, um, really resonated to me. The idea that I could help someone with something that I knew was so important to quality of life. Um, and that's what this shift has been for me. Is it's been an amazing challenge on the mental side to
mm,
learn something brand new about the science of hearing and the technologies available to help people hear better. But then that learning, which I'm passionate, that curiosity to learn something new, coupled with the idea that I can help people, which, so head is being stimulated and heart is being rewarded, was and is amazing. And
wow.
I can't tell you how excited I am to have made this career choice. And you know, again, proud and of all the work that I did in marketing, but also so excited on this like idea of an encore career of doing something new. And you know, I don't take credit for the word encore career. It's from a book I read by Chip Connolly called Making of the Modern Elder. But you know, we live so much longer than we used to in life. The idea that we're only going to do one career and maybe hang on for years and just until we have to retire just doesn't feel modern anymore. And the idea of being able to do something new and use the wisdom that you gained in your earlier career into something new was so freeing.
Well, obviously it resonates with me because I've kind of done the same thing. I mean, in a way, I followed that path myself. So I get what you're saying and understand it. Is there, you know, if you had to think, like, first off, I think it's really courageous that you did this. I think that is courageous because I think a lot of people, you know, once they get into, if you were working in a particular area, or like you said, after 20 plus years,
Yeah.
to be able to even think that you would start sort of anew, right, somewhere else in almost like it's not a field that that was so different for you in terms of not having some fundamental understanding, but it certainly wasn't your niche that you had spent time studying for 20 years. For me, it really is quite telling. I think it's amazing that you've been able to make the decision for yourself and the choice that this is really where your heart is right now, your heart and your mind, in terms of the curiosity and the learning and the giving. You mentioned the quality of life piece and being able to make that impact. And so what advice, I mean, this is a good thing. Like, what advice would you have for someone out there who might be, you know, saying to themselves, God, I've been doing something for 20 years, has lost like you said, lost their passion, is in maybe where it's suffering every day because they're going to a job and a career that they're no longer in it really for what it is. They're just kind of going through the motions. What advice might you give to those individuals?
Whether you've been in a career for 20 years or not, and you need a change, or even as you're starting a career, to me, the advice I give everyone, my nephews, you know, other people I talk with, is follow your passion. And you know, that requires finding your passion. And it's not just like, okay, what are you passionate about? Well,
that's not an easy thing because that's also something else, right? Like courage. People, you hear it too a lot now, like follow your passion. What the hell does that really mean? Follow your passion. And how do you even know that you're really in touch with what your passion may be?
Yeah. I always tell people to just sniff around, like, what is exciting to you? It's not like, what's my passion? It's just like, in your everyday life, what is it that is causing you joy or curiosity, intense curiosity? So whatever the things that are driving an emotional response from you, especially happiness, joy, passion.
I think also there's a hint of, and thinking what the decision you made, and you can tell me if this sounds right, but it's almost like there's purpose there too, because you talked about the quality of life, right? And that might be, purpose is easier because I think, I mean, I did it. You know, there's a moment where sometimes, you know, I think when you're younger and you're not as, it's not that you haven't been jaded. It's just that you're able to read things better, but you don't trust reading those intuitive hits that you may get at that age because you're just not accustomed to it. And so you're like, oh wait, you know, I'm supposed to go into, I need to go into finance. I need to work on Wall Street. And that was such the big thing. Like, I remember in my era, like, I'm going to be a Wall Street trader or whatever. But really, in the end, it's not even aligned with really your purpose. So what ends up happening is, 15, 20 years later, you're like, I'm miserable. Like, I'm not really excited about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that all of that time is wasted, but I think purpose is a really key factor in trying to determine where you're probably going to be filled up, like you said, and come from a place of passion and joy and personal fulfillment in just what you're doing.
No, I think that is absolutely right on. And, it's a whole different way of thinking about it from the passion element, the idea of purpose, because the difference between having a job or having a purpose is huge.
Mm-hmm.
If you every day are thinking about what your purpose is and that you're going off to fight battles and, work is work. They call it work for a reason. It's hard and it's not always going to be happy place, a playground, But if you are following your purpose, it's going to propel you. And for me, I sometimes, I mean, I'm not, I don't know what you want to say, stupid. I say to myself on the way to work what my purpose is. My purpose
Wow.
is to help people hear better so that they can connect with others, tackle what's most important in their life, and feel more confident no matter what gets thrown in their way. To feel that purpose and know you're off going to fight battles and to help people with that, it makes all the difference.
Wow. That sounds amazing. And I pretty much that's all the questions I had. And I want to just say that one of the things that, of course, any really great coaches can do is actually help you get clear or get clarity around what your purpose is. And again, it's also, it's not about a coach telling you. Any good coaching is about helping you self-discover, like it's self-discovery through that mutual kind of respectful, trusting relationship. And so I just want to put that out there too, that if you're out there listening and you're in a place right now where you're like, I have no idea what the hell my purpose is, there are people, you don't have to do it alone. And a lot of times that's what people end up doing also, is they find themselves trying to figure this stuff out by themselves, when there's people, friends, family, coach, people that can help you help to get that clarity for yourself. So
I think that's a critical point. The idea of whether you're finding your passion or your purpose, but the idea of not doing it on your own is really key. I've always said that if you're thinking about a new career or trying to find a job, the best way to do so is to network with others, and I see so many people who draw inward, and so they just sit at the computer and they feel like they've sent out 300 resumes, but we all know they just go into a black hole of submission,
absolutely.
and it can be so demeaning. But to reach out to others for help, just lunch conversations or whatever, to help you, each one might further your thinking, and it might open opportunities. Oh, I know somebody you should talk to, et cetera, et cetera. And I say that, it sounds sort of blithe, to say it like that, because I found myself when I was in this walking in the wilderness, even though I knew that and I told others, you need to seek out other people for help, I was withdrawing in. And my husband pointed it out to me. And so I
Interesting.
started having conversations. And when I was thinking about hearing, I reached out to my audiologist, my doctor, and said, can I take you to lunch? I'm thinking about a career change. And that is what led me to the work that I'm doing now and the company that I'm working now, the medical practice I'm working for. So it makes all the difference to surround yourself with people. And, I think people sometimes feel like it's a burden, but actually there are so many people out there, and I've become so convinced that we all need guides in our life.
Mm.
And I'm a guide for hearing. I have expertise and a desire to help you. And there are guides out there all throughout your life to help you manage life and optimize your life to take you greater than you could ever do on your own.
I can certainly echo the same sentiment that I used to be, I would say more, again, early on in my career, and I would say even into my early 30s, where I thought I had to do it all myself. I mean, it was kind of a mindset that I had, that it was about me figuring stuff out. It was about me doing the research. And I think I recognize now, of course, much later, that not later, but at least I realized it, that, like you said, reaching out and asking people for help as actually can be such a powerful place to be. And it's not weakness, it's actually recognizing that, you just need, like you said, that collaborative environment to just bounce ideas off of and have someone maybe challenge what you're thinking, or build you up and help guide you in a way, because they have the experience that you're either looking for, and help you navigate those waters. And so I'm really glad that we had this conversation. It's a really exciting conversation, and I really appreciate you taking time to be here. I think you've had just this amazing career, and where you are right now, I think is such a beautiful place, so that people can see out there that, you can keep going. You just keep going, and keep being true to yourself.
Yeah, I'm excited about where I'm going, and I feel a lot of excitement about what I've done. And I'm also, grateful. I've had amazing teams. I've been fortunate to work for great companies and where I can be my authentic self. And so I wish that for everybody.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Absolutely. All right. Take care.
Appreciate it.
All right. Bye.
Bye.